We are talking Antlers, and this one is directed by Scott Cooper and stars Keri Russell and Jesse Plemons. Now, this movie was actually made back in 2018, but it's one of these films that got significantly delayed due to the coronavirus pandemic and was originally then released in 2021. So, this has been described as an art house horror film, and although I would say there is elements of an art house feel to it, I wouldn't go as far as to say it is an art house film. And the reason why I say that is because the movie's narrative, I think, is very clear in regards to what's kind of going on, and doesn't try to be too clever with kind of like, you know, trickery and kind of weird filming techniques. I think the reason why people maybe say it's an art house film is because the backdrop of which this film is set in a very kind of real and depressing and kind of somewhat kind of sad kind of backdrop in regards to the town and its inhabitants. So what is the story? Well, it focuses on this small ex-coal mining town in the state of Oregon. And we learn through various kind of like shots and sequences that this town has seen better days. There seems to be businesses that are going out of business. People are kind of moving away, losing their jobs, losing their homes. There's a big drug problem, and everything is kind of has seen better days and looks tarnished and kind of tired and broken down. The movie focuses on Keri Russell's character, who is a teacher who once was abused by her father and seemingly has run away, but is now trying to reconnect with her brother, played by Jesse Plemons, who is also the victim of abuse. But she's teaching at this local school and sees a young boy called Lucas, and she recognises the sign of abuse. Now, Lucas comes from this kind of family with his father and his younger brother, where there has been abuse, and his father is making methamphetamines and such. However, there is something else at play here with this Native American spirit known as the Wendigo, and this is a kind of a creature that essentially takes hold of people and kind of changes them into a carnivorous beast that resembles a kind of stag or a kind of a buck with kind of antlers, as it appears in the title there. And we've seen Wendigos pop up here and there in kind of popular culture, but I would say this is maybe the most high profile movie, certainly, that features a Wendigo. And this little boy, Lucas, you know, he's still trying to kind of look after this creature, which, you know, may well have been his father once, but it's certainly becoming less like that as the days go by. What'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So the biggest strength of this movie is how seriously it takes the subject matter and the kind of the world that this movie takes place in. As I've mentioned, the impoverished kind of town that this takes place in, its kind of setting, its characters, really have a somewhat of a depressing feel to it, but you feel like you're watching a drama about, you know, the struggle of these people's lives and how they're dealing with everything from abuse just to kind of economic hardships, everything really. And I think it's such a kind of like well-told film in regards to that. The characters seem so real, with fantastic performances, particularly from this young actor who plays Lucas, I think, who really kind of sells it. But from everyone, Keri Russell and Jesse Plemons as well, give stellar performances. The movie is so kind of well shot. It really, you know, you really feel like you kind of get wrapped up in the kind of the story, and it kind of takes you on this sort of journey. You almost feel like you're a resident there too, because you just get so invested, I feel, in the kind of the backdrop of this kind of like you know, very kind of dreary looking kind of town, and it's kind of what's all kind of going on there. And I feel the movie, although it is relatively slow at starts, it nonetheless pulls you in because of expert storytelling great performances, you know, fantastic kind of visuals. This clearly had a reasonable sort of budget, at least for by horror film kind of standards, because it just feels like it's such a kind of well-made film. The story as well works on multiple levels, because you're kind of invested in the kind of the dramatic side of the story, just in regards to, you know, how is this little boy going to kind of like deal with all these kind of adult situations that, you know, he shouldn't be having to deal with at 12, and you know, how long will it take for sort of Keri Russell to kind of step in, and what's her relationship going to be like with her brother and her colleagues and things like this. So it all works on this kind of like dramatic level, and then it also has this element of kind of creature feature and horror and kind of mysticism and stuff like that as well, which, you know, the movie kind of wisely never really kind of goes too much into that, and kind of just gives you glimpses and kind of partial bits of information. We never really even see the creature in all its full glory, but it gives you enough to, I feel, to sort of show you what is kind of going on, and you know, you see enough there to understand what it actually kind of looks like without really ever having like that hero shot, so to speak. And as the film goes on, I feel it does pick up and kind of ends up being more of a kind of creature feature, typical kind of horror film. But like I said, the strengths for me here really are the great performances, great visuals, compelling kind of story, fantastically written characters that are fleshed out and well written and completely kind of believable. The only thing where I feel this movie really falls down on for me is actually the lore in regards to the Wendigo, and maybe the actual Wendigo itself. For me, it didn't quite fill in gaps in regards to how the kind of this thing is supposed to work, because it seems to eat the flesh of some people, but seems to infect others and create more Wendigos, or it kind of, you know, passes on the disease almost like a werewolf or something. But I thought the movie just a little bit flip-flops in regards to how this kind of thing is kind of supposed to work, never really sort of settling on the kind of the rules, so to speak, of what this creature is actually supposed to do. And I also think, you know, I don't want to spoil anything for you, but when we see what the character of Lucas, he's trying to kind of almost feed this kind of creature, but the creature's not really alone, and again, I don't really feel that was completely kind of satisfying in regards to the dynamic of Lucas's family. Let me just put it like that without trying to spoil anything there. To me, there was still questions that this movie did not answer, and maybe that was by design, but to me, I couldn't really understand why certain things were the way they are, is the best way I would kind of describe it. Now, the final act of the movie, I have to say, I think is the weakest. It's not weak, but it is weaker compared to the first two, because it turns more into a traditional kind of horror film with the creature kind of on the loose. I think the CGI here stands out as being quite noticeable. Now, I won't go as far as say it's bad CGI, and I would say there's CGI movies that, or there's horror films where the CGI is worse, but it kind of gets away with it because it's not, the movie, generally speaking, isn't as well told or well acted and well kind of like well produced and as dramatic as this one. But because this movie has such a kind of a realistic kind of take on its characters up until this point, when we see the kind of a CGI monster, it kind of sticks out more a little bit, and kind of, I think, just cheapens the film a little bit. Now, the film, as I say, why doesn't show you too much of the monster. That was definitely a good choice, because I think when we do see it, there are some shots that didn't really kind of work for me, and the ending is a little bit too easily resolved, and there's that typical kind of FU moment. And I think the final confrontation to me happened a little bit too easily in some respects, especially when we have been told, and the characters involved have been told certain things. So to me, the ending wasn't particularly strong. It didn't quite stick the landing for me. But it's such a strong film surrounding that, and up to that point, I feel this movie is definitely, you know, would be considered a good horror film. And I'll give this one a 7 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.